Hello and welcome. Today we will be printing with food scraps. This is one of my favorite art projects to do because it makes use of food bits that would otherwise be thrown away or composted. This project will really challenge us to be resourceful and creative by thinking outside of the box when looking for art materials. Literally anything around you can be used in art, including food. So to get started, we will need to find some food items to print with. Ask your parent or guardian to save the food scraps from cooking. I'll show you the items that I like to use from my own kitchen, but depending on what type of vegetables you have, you might find totally different items that can work for you, and that is totally okay. So let's go through what I have on hand. So this is from scraps that I've saved. I really love using corn, especially the end that has this bit because it makes it easier to hold on to. If you look at this print, the blue here is what was printed with the corn. I'll show you how to do that later. Let's see what else we got. These end bits from like celery or lettuce are really helpful to you. So this is from celery, the end where the stalk is, and this is for lettuce. And you can see what we're looking for are different food items that have interesting shapes or patterns that we can use in our printing. You can see how different even the celery and lettuce look. So save these stalks. From the corn, I also have these like husk pieces that I'm gonna try and do something with. They have an interesting texture. So beyond just the shape of the fruit, finding things that have interesting texture could be fun to print with as well. So I saved a couple of these. And for more celery pieces, celery makes really good printing tools because they have this really fun little V shape. So that would be nice to print with. Let's see what else. We have onion. We got this really cool like semicircles design going on. That will be really good to use. I also love using the top of peppers because they make really cool shapes. So this may make you look at food a totally different way when you think about using these scraps. I also love using the tops of fruit where there's a stem because then that's where you'll hold it when you print it. So look for those, any sort of vegetables with a stem. For example, squash is really great to use while printing because of the stem. And then also we want to look for vegetables that have a flat surface so that we can carve into it. Squash, pumpkins, all sorts of different vegetables similar to it work really well. I also save the tops of carrots because they also have this really flat surface and it's easy to carve into it, which is like a pen or pencil. So save your carrot tops. They also make really good tools for printing. Let's see what else. I have a peach pit. I'm going to experiment with this, but I really like the texture and the lines on this, so we'll see how this turns out. And then I have some seeds. These are sunflower seeds that I have around. Seeds work really well. I'll show you how to create a design with seeds on tape to use in printing. If you eat watermelon, save the watermelon seeds, or if you're using squash, you can save the seeds from squash, use pumpkin seeds, any type of seed really. And then just come up with whatever else that you find in your kitchen. Potatoes work really well. You could use an apple. There's a lot of possibilities. So this is part of the process of trying to be resourceful, using items that you wouldn't normally use and that would be thrown away. So be really creative in that part. So now that I have some food items, also if you don't have any food scraps on hand, you can ask an adult to cut up food for you to use in this project. But it's very important that only adults should be using knives to cut up food. We don't want any accidents today. So for some of the other materials we'll need for this project, we're going to need different colored acrylic paint. We'll need some brushes, and I like to have, different size brushes. I want at least one brush per color so they don't mix up my colors, or mix up your colors if that's part of your design. So I have different brushes here. We'll also need a pencil or pen. We're going to use the end to carve our design into the food scraps. So use a pencil or pen. And then also for the seed design, you're going to need some tape. I use packing tape, but you can use whatever tape you have around the house. We will need paper to print on. I'm using white so the colors show up really well, but you could, use different colored construction paper as well. And I also have, you want a paper towel or napkin, and this will, we're gonna dry off our vegetable pieces before we print, so we'll need something to dry them off. And then we'll need a newspaper or cardboard to lay down on our printing surface. So now that I have my food items all picked out and the materials that I need, I'm going to lay down that piece of cardboard and newspaper now. I just use a paper bag that I cut up. It works fine too. So I'm going to put down some of my pieces. Let's get out the food scrap pieces first that we need to carve and place a design. I'll put some of the other food scraps back in my bowl. So I have this piece of squash. I'm going to carve a design into it. So these are going to work just like stamps. I'm going to carve my print here with my pen or pencil. But just keep in mind whatever design you use. So this one is like a shape. But if you want to use words, and I'll do an example of letters here. If you're using letters to create a word or a phrase, you want to make sure that you carve the letters backwards so they read as normal when you print. So when you're carving your print, all the letters are going to be backwards, but when you print it, they'll be right side. You'll be able to read it as normal. If this is difficult for you to visualize, try writing your word or phrase with letters backwards on a separate piece of paper first. Hold it up to a mirror, and in the mirror you should be able to read it. If not, fix the letters until it looks right. So let's do an example on this one of some letters. So I'm going to do LOL. Something I use a lot, and the L's need to be backwards, so I'm going to start on the right side. Usually when you're writing you start on the left, but since we're doing things backwards, I'm going to first draw a backwards L, and then an O is actually the same frontwards and backwards, so I don't need to worry about that. And then the last L is also going to be backwards. So you don't have to go too deep on this and this way around, but we're gonna go back over the lines. So now that I have LOL, it backwards, I'm gonna just go back over every single line and go at least 1/8 of an inch deep into the vegetable. And then you'll see that there'll be some pulp that comes out. Just try and remove that and dig that out of the carving so that you get a really nice deep impression on your stamp. We want these letters to be really clear, so I'm going a little deep, and then also just removing either with the pen or with just kind of scraping it out with my fingers. So I got an O here. I'm going to do another little L. So I'm just kind of using my fingernails to take out any remaining pulp. Well, that's pretty good. So I'm going to put this aside. And And you can draw any design you want. Again, here's some of the other ones I did before. This is just an image triangle with some lines. This is like a little star. So get really creative. Because you're using pen or pencil, the design will need to be a little big. The lines get a little thick. So just try and do simplified designs, work best. So another technique you can try is to use seeds. So I have a big piece of tape that I've cut off of my packing tape. So I'm going to lay this down with the sticky side up first. And then I'm going to grab some of my seeds and create a design. So maybe I'll put this here, one at the top, like that. Then maybe another one here. Maybe we'll do like a little flower shape. Totally up to you. You can also spell out words or phrase with seeds as well. Just make sure, just like how we did the stamps to print with, any letters that you use need to be spelled backwards first. So I'll do one right here. And then I'm just pressing down on each individual seed to make sure that they're sticking to the tape. So that looks pretty cool. And then for the tape ends, just to make it easier for me to grab onto, I'm just going to fold these tape ends over so that I can pick it up without getting my fingers stuck to the tape. So we have our food scraps. We've made a stamp with some food scraps and then create a design with seeds. And you can check and make sure that they're sticking to the tape by holding it upside down. Looks pretty good. All right, I think we are ready to get started printing. So now I have my surface. I'm gonna flatten this out a little bit. So now let's squeeze out some paint. I'm going to use, I really like blue and orange together, so I'm going to use these two colors. You can use whatever colors you want, however many colors you want as well. So I'm going to put a piece of paper here for my printing and just maybe off to the side or at the top of your paper, you can squeeze out some paint. You may need to squeeze the bottle or actually shake the bottle to squeeze out paint that's thoroughly mixed because it might separate. So I'm going to shake it really well first and then squeeze out a little bit of paint. A little goes a long way. So just try a little bit of paint first, and if you need more, add more later. But so I'm going to get this green, shake it up. Also, if you have a palette, you can use that as well for your paint. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to start with the corn first because it makes a really nice background print you see in this one. I'm going to do it first and then use the smaller stamp pieces and other pieces of food to go on top. You don't have to do this. Do it in any order that you want. So before we add paint to the surface of the vegetables, I'm just going to use a paper towel or napkin just to kind of make sure the food is not wet. This will, if the food is dry, then the paint will stick on a little bit more. I'm just going to remove some of this stuff. All right. So we're going to take a brush. I'm going to use the green. And then we're going to apply it for the corn. I'm going to roll the corn cob on the paper. So I'm going to put it all the way around. So the amount of paint you want to use is not too much or too little. I don't want gobs of paint on here, but if I don't put enough on, then it won't really transfer to the paper. So just like a nice balance between that. Enough paint that you can see it on there, but not too much. We want to get this really cool texture of corn onto our paper. So I've gone all the way around. Now we're ready to roll. So I'm going to do one roll here. I'm going to start one end. Let's roll all the way to the top. And it gives us this really cool texture to work with. So I'm just going to do that in the middle. Then I'll have space on the sides. You're going to do your print however you want. We're all creating mono prints. So we're going to layer different prints on top of each other. A mono print is a one-off print that cannot be duplicated. So each one of these pieces of paper for our printing session will be special and unique. So I'm going to try other pieces of fruit so you can see what that looks like. Let's try the pepper. What do you think? So again, I'm going to blot the vegetable or fruit first, and then I'm going to use another brush for a different color. How about blue? And then again, I'm going to get it. You don't need to get into the crevices, just the surface that will be printed on. So okay, so I feel like I have an even layer of paint here all around. Let's try printing with that. Maybe I do this right in the middle. Let's see. So as you're printing, just also make sure to press down a little bit and to make sure the paint is going to transfer over to the paper. Once I press down on my little stamp, I'm going to remove it. Wow, look at that. It almost looks like a flower in the middle. And if you print with the ends of like celery or lettuce, you're also going to get another cool effect. It'll look a little bit like this, like a little flower. So experiment with that. I'm going to go back to my LOL stamp and apply some paint. So I'm going to use orange for this because I really want it to stand out. So let's see what this will look like. You can kind of see LOL. I had a little bit extra paint on there, so let's see if I print it again, if you can read it a little bit better. LOL, it does come out. So initially when you print, and you may want to do with these stamps, when you carve it in, if you have a little excess paint, it'll be harder to read. So you may want to use a separate piece of paper and do some test prints with the ones that you've carved first, just to make sure that the excess is out and then your design is a little bit clearer. So cool. Now let's do our last technique with the seeds. So we've experimented with just using the fabric scraps on their own, carving into it, and now we have our seed. Uh-oh. So if you have an issue with your seed sticking to your tape, you could also apply a little bit of glue to make sure it's there. But if you have good enough tape, you should just be able to press down the seeds. So let's do orange on these as well. So I'm just trying to get an even amount of paint on there without putting too much. And now you can turn it this way with the paint down, and then place it down here and just press. we get just like a cool design. I'm gonna do it again. You may be able to get a couple different prints, but if you start running out, if it's not as dark as you want, you can add more paint. We could also go back in here and layer colors. So I did orange. Maybe I want to do green as well. Green on top. So you see here, I have a lot of paint here. I put way too much on there. I'm gonna try and take some off with my brush. What's nice about using the tape as a printing method is you can see straight through it. So I'm gonna try and line up the best I can, but if it's a little off, that's okay too. So again, I put green on there, pressing down on all the seeds, lifting up. And now you have this like double print with orange underneath, green on top. So definitely play around with layering all the colors to create your beautiful monoprint. And once you're done printing, you'll have a beautiful one-of-a-kind monoprint that you can hang on your wall, or you can make a special card out of it for somebody. Maybe print on larger paper to make wrapping paper. The possibilities are literally endless. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I'll see you next time.